All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Memo Creative Festival podcast, where we discuss big ideas around how creativity and culture shapes the way we work, live, and connect. I'm one of your hosts, Taylor Pfeiffer, and I'm here with my co-host, Brooke Hoffus. And today we are interviewing the one and only George Stroumboulopoulos. George has been a defining voice in Canadian media, from Much Music and CBC's The Hour to CNN, Apple Music, and beyond. He's an interviewer, broadcaster, humanitarian, and cultural instigator. And today he's with us on the Memo podcast.
So, George, we just want to say how excited we are to have you on the podcast. I grew up watching Much Music with my sisters, and you were just a regular in our living room. So it's awesome to have you on here today. And it's great that you've always used your mic with purpose, whether that was through music or journalism or activism. And it's just a true honor to have you here. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're very kind, and I appreciate being here with you. I had never even anticipated a life that would put me in this position. I didn't think about being on TV ever. It was never my goal to do this for a living at all. So when Much Music came along, I didn't even have cable growing up, so I didn't really understand. I knew what Much Music was because there would be, in the early days when it launched, most homes didn't have it. So every now and then they would make what was called a free weekend, and you'd all run to your friend's house, the one person on the street who had cable, and we'd watch Much. So Much was never part of my mind. And so when I ended up working there, I had no idea that it was going to be what it was, and when privileged and what a gift it's been for me to have had that experience and to meet people like you and to do this. This is fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Well, that's great. And just echoing what Brooke was saying, I grew up watching the same channels. I'd come home from school, and with my sister too, he would turn you on. And we grew up in Saskatoon, and so it was actually very eye-opening for us. We didn't get a lot of that level of kind of cultural stimulation from many sources being in Saskatoon. So that was just very eye-opening for us, and to be able to listen to music and all that great stuff. The recommendations that you would make around that and the interviews you would command were just so interesting. So you've been to Saskatoon a few times now. One time that you were here, you were actually interviewing Oprah on stage at Credit Union Center, a SaskTel Center. Is there anything that you're looking forward to when you're visiting Saskatoon this October, when you're going to be here for Memo Creative Festival? I'm just wondering.
A long time ago, I've been to Saskatchewan a bunch of times in my life, many, many times. And I think it was when I was still at Much Music, I was shooting a documentary about Tommy Douglas, and it was for this Greatest Canadian thing. We all made our pitch for our Greatest Canadian, so I did it on Tommy C. And so we spent, my friend and colleague, a guy called Guy, who's no longer with us, he and I traveled around Saskatchewan with the crew, and it was amazing. So I've always loved the province, and I think because I'm not just a student of history, but I pay close attention to history, like really close attention to it. So much of what I love about Canada comes from a certain era in Saskatchewan. The province has always been really important to me. Saskatoon, I don't remember the last time I was there. I was there a couple of years ago doing a fundraiser. We do a thing called, it was like a gold medal plates thing. We raise money for local athletes, raise money to get music equipment into schools throughout the province. So I've been to Saskatoon a couple times over the last few years doing that. So, and I always, whenever they present the dates of which shows to pick, I always make sure I pick the ones in Saskatchewan because I just love coming to that province. So yeah, I'm very much excited to come back. And it's one of the reasons I said yes to this is because it's an opportunity to come back to Saskatchewan.
That's great. Well, awesome. I agree with you. I think Saskatoon is truly a special place, and we have a ton of interesting people here who are doing all sorts of creative things. Katie Tupper is one of those people who was just on your show. Is there anyone else? Yeah. Is there anybody else who you've programmed lately that you think deserves a bigger stage, perhaps, or deserves a little promotion?
Listen, my two favorite bands from Saskatchewan, I can't play on my show because they're so heavy. And so I will sneak them in a little bit. There's a band called Bone Crate who I don't know who's going to be watching this or listening to these clips, but I love all kinds of, I'm not really into pop music. That's not my genre. So pop music in any genre, I don't listen to poppy or hip hop. I don't listen to pop country. I don't like pop versions of stuff. Not that it's bad. It's just not me. I go the other way. So I try to find the edge of the earth, right? And the last Bone Crate record is that. And I think they are from Saskatoon. And then there's a more heavy metal, a heavier metal one called Goat Hammer, which are killer, like satanic kind of black metal sort of vibe. And I love that too, you know. And of course, and a YouTube creator I watch all the time is a guy called Steve Boots. He's Saskatchewan based, so definitely connected to those artists. And I think he's a great voice in Canadian current events. So those are the three. But the one I listen to the most is probably Goat Hammer. You know,
Cool.
And I like Katie's record. And Katie doesn't sound anything like Goat Hammer, but of course, but I like Katie. So we definitely wanted to give her some love on the show.
Well, maybe we need to get Goat Hammer and Katie for Memo 2026. That'd be
I
an
don't
interesting
know.
mashup.
I don't even know if Goat Hammer still makes music. I think
Okay.
you don't really find them on the streamers. You know, it's just so much of what it's informed my life culturally and musically is stuff that never broke big, and isn't designed to break big, right? It's designed to be a very intense experience, very tight experience, and so I don't even know if Goat Hammer are making music anymore. I kind of hope they are, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. I was going to say you and Taylor would bond over that because Taylor is a little secret metal guy. So
Yeah.
Well, I tell people that I'm a closet metalhead. I think I'm now out of the closet on that, but like most people would never guess that. But for
Dude,
sure,
I
gotta look them up.
love metal. I love metal so much, partly because I love, for whatever reason, it sounds, the chaos outside sounds lovely inside to me. But also I have so much, if there's never even the remotest possibility you will cross over and gain mainstream success, right? If you're not chasing that, if it's not like, which almost, not all artists, but so many genres, there is a stream that you try to get to.
yeah.
If you never, like my mother will never know who the bands I listen to are. They'll never cross, right? If you never have that as a possibility, the freedom that you have as an artist is spectacular. And I have so much respect for artists who are diving right into what they want, the way they want, and how it sounds with no pressures. I mean, look, the metal community can be a little precious. The punk community can be a little precious, but if you're never going to cross over, holy, can you really push boundaries? And that's why I love it so much.
And Rick Rubin talks about that often, how he doesn't make music for the audience, he makes it for himself. And that's a little bit of that mentality kind of worked in. But something like metal, it can be so galvanizing for a lot of people to listen to for the first time. But there's like, I always liken metal to like, you know, jazz music or the, you know, sort of more technical ensembles of something that's really, really interesting and layered, like classical music, the arpeggios and like the harmonies that happen, and even like the vocal ability of some of these metal artists is absolutely incredible. And you don't get that in a lot of genres. So I'm happy that we share that on.
You also can't mail it in, right? You can really mail it in most genres. You can really, and listen, there'll be people who might get in the comments to say no, but I can assure you, having interviewed 10,000 plus people over the last 30 years and a lot of the musicians, and seeing, I can assure you that there's an awful lot of mailing in going on with stuff. But in metal, you cannot mail it in because everybody will know. Everybody. So the extreme music, hardcore, things like that, you got to bring it. You have to bring it. And I just love how intense that is. It's how I live my life. I live it with a particular kind of intensity, for better or for worse.
Yeah, you were saying before before we just pushed recording that you thrive in chaos. And I'm like curious where that comes from. Is that being brought up in this immigrant family, like as a kid, and, you know, that sort of life, or where did that come from, do you think?
So sometimes I wonder if, I don't know if I have the exact, the clear answer to that, but if I think about it, you know, it's not like my childhood was chaotic. There were certainly moments of chaos, and my neighborhood had moments of chaos. But I think what happens is your little brain, 5, 6, 7 years old, just starts to form, you compartmentalize, right? You form ways to handle things, manage things. And I think when there's so much that's out of your control, you find ways to create control. But for me, what happened was I not only was I trying to find ways to create control, it wasn't that I was trying to control the situation. I was trying to control how I reacted in that situation. So I didn't try to shut out the chaos. I kind of figured, well, I can just be big and brash. And even though I was really shy and really truly antisocial, which I kind of still am antisocial. So I've had to learn how to be a different version of myself as I got older, because I can be outgoing and I can be good in public but it's not my first language, right? And now I guess over time, neurons that fire together wire together. So I'm obviously more comfortable now than I used to be. But when things are chaotic around me, and I mean in the world,
Yeah.
I'm not glib about other people's pain and suffering. I don't crave that by any means, but I feel like I'm getting the most of the human experience and the most out of it. So when things are chaotic, I feel really alive because there's so much life happening in really complex situations. And I've never been the guy that wants to just kind of sort of lay back and let it happen. No, front lines, that's just, so I don't know if it comes from my childhood, but I'm certain that all does. I'm certain all of our stuff comes from all of our experiences over time, and you find ways to compartmentalize. But I've never wanted the world to be a thing that I don't want the life to be my life. I want to exist in the life that it is. I'm not trying to make it something for me, because otherwise it's just narrow point of views, and then it's boring, right?
Yeah.
For me anyway. So I don't really care what I think about things. I really care about how I can manage to move through all that chaos.
I love that, and I really admire that, because I think for myself, like, when there is chaos, I can feel quite anxious, or there's periods in my life where I've gone through depression and have experienced all of that. And I think you have that's a great way of viewing it, because as a human, it's everything. It's all the emotions all at once. And I think being able to embrace that is super important. And I love what you're saying.
Depression and sadness for sure. What I don't get is anxious. So I have all the other stuff. I have all the other stuff that everybody has. But I don't get anxious. And maybe something's broken in my brain that I've never felt it really. I mean, you have moments, of course, where you're excited and the excitement overtakes, but yeah, I don't feel, and maybe I just smile and open my eyes and I just think, "Okay, let's go.
I love that.
Let's go."
Has it always been that way?
Yeah.
For as long as you can remember? For yourself? Yeah.
I think, I think so. I think, when I was younger. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Last night on your last night on your Instagram live, you said that you're a bison.
You're watching that?
Well,
I was. And I saw the little mini meltdown there, which was fantastic, by the way.
No, bro, that wasn't a meltdown. That was me picking a fight. That was me.
I love that. I love that. And everybody was cheering you on. Everybody was doing this.
This is what I love about the people who connect to me on social media, is that we're just not here. We're just not here for the distraction Olympics, right? We have to get to the heart of it. That was me getting into it with somebody. Yeah. I'm a bison for sure. I'm a bison. When the storm comes, I don't turn away from it. I run into it, or I walk into it, because I know that A, it can't kill me, and B, if it does kill me, then who cares? I'm dead. Then it won't matter. But I know that I think lots of people, I think men, a lot of us become very, very good at avoiding things, and avoidance is something that I have to work on all the time. And part of the reason I avoid things is because I just can't be bothered. And when you can't be bothered, it's just not always a good enough excuse. Sometimes it is, but sometimes you just have to be bothered. So like Matt stuff, the thing you saw in the live stream last night was just me. Normally I would ignore it, but every now and then it's like, no. If you're going to say something dumb, I'm going to get into it, right? So sometimes you have to be bothered. So I make sure that I'm always checking in with my behavior, and I want to live a very sustainable life, and I want to live a life that is where I'm unencumbered by the hustlers and the schemes, as the great Bob Seger once said. One of the ways I do that is by just going right into the storm. I don't want anything to have any power over me. I don't want any place to have any power over me. I don't want any person to have any power over me. I feel like to be a truly free man, I can't be a free person because I live in a society. So we engage in social contracts, and I'm totally fine with that. But to be a free man for me, a free person, the way I do it is by letting nothing have power over me. That doesn't mean I'm not influenced by it and I don't change and grow, but I fear nothing in that respect, because the end result is hopefully a more sustainable me. And that's dope, man. And that means I'm a better friend. That means I'm a better family member. That means I'm a better colleague. That means I'm a better member of society. I want to be better at all these things, right? But I can't be better at them if I ignore it, right? I got to get into it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it allows you to be grounded more in that empathy. And I know that's something that you've talked a lot about on other podcasts. And I was just curious if there was like a moment, or maybe in your youth or your earlier work, where you realized empathy wasn't just a value, but more of like a personal strength.
I don't know if I've ever noticed that, to be honest with you, but I do know that I can care as deeply and love as deeply somebody and something or an issue or anything that is not personally connected to me as I do when they are connected to me. So I don't need a personal connection to care. There's this great line that Hieronymus Bosch says, everybody matters or nobody matters. And I really believe that. And I know it sounds hippie bullshitty, and it sounds, we live in an era of podcast clips now where the person says some kind of motivational life advice. And I get I hate that stuff. I know why it's important, right? I get it. So it's not that I hate it because it's wrong. It's right. I hate that stuff because I think we can fall into this loop of the learning loop, where you just hear people talk about stuff, but unless you actually go out there and do it, you're not learning anything. You have to put things into practice. And so to me, it's everybody matters or nobody matters. And I have always felt that way. I suspect I learned that from my mother. She's very good at this, but also it's the Clash, right? You listen to the Clash as a kid, and especially in the early 80s, when there's the threat of nuclear annihilation, there is the satanic panic, there is what's going to be Brian Mulroney, Margaret Thatcher, and Ronald Reagan, who are going to really ruin us, and we're still paying for that today. Maybe I shouldn't say that on the thing in Saskatchewan, but you have all that, right? You have the Cold War, you still have apartheid in South Africa, you still have what's happening in Palestine. Then you have the beginning of the AIDS crisis. So growing up in that era, it was that late 70s, early to mid 80s Gen X experience was really intense, really intense. And we were rogue, right? We were out. So you have all these things that kind of float around you. And when you're a young, angry boy from a complicated kind of home, you can really go down the wrong road. But what happened is the Clash came around, and a band called Crass, and of course the Sex Pistols. So whereas the Misfits and Slayer and Metallica really, and to a degree the Pistols really fueled the anger and the disconnection in me, the Clash and Crass, and to a degree the Pistols, helped focus that anger to care about making things better. So I'm so very much as much as I'm influenced by my mother and my uncle, I really am. I am really influenced by music and those early bands and like Joe Strummer, man. I know it sounds so crazy to say now, because especially younger kids, they hear old G's talk about Joe all the time, but really mattered, man. Like Joe really, really mattered to a lot. And then George Carlin, Bill Hicks, and Public Enemy came out, and we were all there. You know, we had the greatest gods of all time. George Carlin, Bill Hicks, Joe Strummer, and Chuck D. Oh my God, you know.
It's awesome. George, I've
I
heard you
love that.
talk about having living room shows at your house in Toronto. Who
Mm.
was the and I don't know if this is the right question to ask necessarily, but was there a particular show that stands out in your mind as the most impactful for you, just to have like a bunch of people in your house or your living room listening to this band?
John Prine. John Prine came to my home and played a concert, and Jim Cuddy from Blue Rodeo was there
Mm.
watching, and Menno from Colorado was there, and Tara Lightfoot and Gordon Lightfoot. Gordon Lightfoot sat there on my living room. We get put on a chair. Everybody sat on the floor, but Gord got a chair. And John Prine just told stories to Gord, and
Mm.
I and then dedicated a song to him and sang to him, and I cannot put into words what that felt like. And my uncle, who is the biggest influence in my life outside of my mother, who passed away,
Mm.
he introduced me to Prine, and he loved Prine. So I got to, like, the first thing John said when he walked up my driveway in Toronto was, "Where's your Uncle Paul?" I said, "He's over there." So
Aw,
to go watch John and my uncle talk, and then Lightfoot step in, oh my
that's
God.
powerful.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. And you know, and I don't show a lot of emotion, but it's one of those things where I think about it sometimes. I
Mm.
have to pause because it's really, yeah, Prine is just the greatest, right? It really is there's a reason Dylan loves Prine, right? Because Prine's special. And so that one, you know, the Cults playing in my house was really big. Robert Plant coming over from Zeppelin, really big. Lots of great bands played. The Kills, whom I love, you know, Josh Homme from Queens. You know, I love
Mm.
so many of those moments are really impactful to me. Blue Rodeo, oh Lord. But when Prine came over, that was the one.
Mm.
And
That's
then he
amazing.
passed, you know, that next year he passed because of during COVID. So he
Hmm.
was gone.
Jeez.
So John, Gord, and my uncle are all gone now. And I have this picture of the three of them, and it's really nice. It's really nice
Oh,
to look at that. Yeah.
That's
that's
great.
such a great memory to hold on to, especially with
Yeah.
your
What
uncle.
I'm
That's amazing.
so privileged. So privileged.
I love that.
You know?
So you've been you're deeply affected by music, and I've also heard you say that when you're in certain moods, music allows you to escape those moods or get out of those moods, such
Mm.
as like those darker feelings, like perhaps a depression or anger or one of those feelings. What are some of the bands that you listen to start that transformation of getting out of that
Yeah.
dark place?
No, I don't listen to music to get out of it. I listen to the music to double down on it.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I double
Interesting.
down. Yeah, I double
Okay.
down on it.
Go
So if
towards
I'm
a storm.
feeling,
The
yeah, yeah.
bison. The bison.
Yeah. If I'm feeling sad or something's not right in me,
Hmm.
I I mean, listen, I'm 52, so I put on Jar of Flies from Alice in Chains, right? Like I really double down. And then and you know, I listen to Spiritualized a lot. There's a band called Spiritualized from England that I worship. Um, Travis is another band that I really like listening to. When I do feel like I need to break it, Taylor, to your point, for me, the easy one, it's a really funny thing. It's a really quick fix for me is Rancid or Johnny Thunders.
Mm.
If I put on Rancid, it's I don't know why. I mean, I know why because I love them, but there's something about listening to Rancid that I mean, I'm instantly there. I'm
Mm.
instantly wherever, no matter what's happening in my life within reason.
Hmm.
Rancid changes the tune, but I won't let myself change the tune until I've really leaned into it because I need to. I always want to figure out why I'm feeling a certain way because
Hmm.
I don't place a lot of value on my feelings, and I know that if I'm feeling, you know, if you're feeling something that's depression or whatever, I don't have a clinical
Yeah.
depression, right? And that's
L-
different.
Let's let's
But if you have
let's
a feeling, go ahead.
let's double click on that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm just really interested in what you said about how you don't value your own feelings. Could
Hmm.
you just like go a little deeper on that for us?
Well,
I'm curious to know what you mean by
yeah,
that.
yeah, this is what I'm saying is that if I'm
Yeah.
feeling something, I I don't just think that the feeling is just the vapor of the fire. So what is not, but it's not the fire to me, right? And I think a lot of people, and by the way, what I'm suggesting is not how I think everybody should live. I think you have to know your brain chemistry and you have to find where you want to be. And so for me, this is how I like to live. I like to hold that line, right? So if I'm feeling a thing, I often know the cause of it. It's either I'm tired, I'm really tired, I didn't drink enough water, my blood sugars, whatever, although I don't use that as an excuse for anything, but I don't eat during the day, right? So I fast about 20 to 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I only drink water and coffee. But so I know that usually what's making me feel bad is usually physiological, usually, or it's a problem on my plate that I have yet to address. So I got to make this difficult phone call. I have to handle this email. I have 3 or 4 obligations that I must contend with. So I know usually what causes the feeling. For me, if I put value on my feelings, I'm not really, then I can run the risk. And I think a lot of people can run the risk of moping, and you're prolonging the feeling by not getting rid of the weight. And so I'm a big believer that it's my job as a human to carry your water. But in order for me to carry your water, I can't carry my own. And so I just need, because I'm designed to be of service. This is what my mother raised me to be, a man of service, and whatever that is, right? But I don't want to be carrying my water, because that'll prevent me from carrying yours. And I really think this way. I spend a lot of time alone, right? I'm in my studio and I spend a lot of time alone, and I spend a lot of time writing and a lot of time, writing and performing things. And I don't want to do it for bullshit. I want to do it for real. And so I have to address the root causes of my behavior. I have to address the root causes of why I feel the way I do. And as a result, my feelings are just vapor. It's the steam off the boiling pot. And so I have to go into the pot and figure out what's wrong, and either turn the stove off or cook it. And that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. It's a great analogy.
By the way, I really do live this way. It's exhausting. Like, I really do. It's exhausting for people in my life because it's such a mess, man, the way I live.
No, I love that though. Like, it's doing that mental checklist. I have to do that too. And just being reminded, like, I avoid things, so that causes anxiety. Like, if it's a big thing and I'm like, oh, but then when you do the thing, it's like, why didn't I just freaking do that earlier?
Right.
Like, that was not as bad as I thought. Like,
right.
So,
but as you know, Brooke, sometimes it's actually a good idea to avoid the thing because the thing's not worth your time. So sometimes there's like a bunch of people who want me to engage on an issue, whatever. And so it's not that I'm avoiding it, it's that I'm just passing it off. That's not my problem. It is not my job to fix that situation. So it's recognizing what it is you have to deal with, and then you got to lead it. But also, there's just some stuff you just don't have to do. Just get rid of it. It's not your responsibility, and it's not our job to fix everything all the time.
Absolutely. No, I think those are great points. And I think something that I'm learning about you and have seen is that you're a very curious person. And I think that's such a great quality to have. I think sometimes as we get older, we can lose that. We have it as kids. We're so curious. Like, I see that with my nephews. They're experiencing everything in the world around them. And it's great. Like, it opens up my eyes to things that I feel like I just pass by on the daily. But I'm curious, like, if your curiosity has maybe ever led you somewhere dangerous, or is it just more something profound that you've experienced through that?
No, it's always dangerous. I've made some really bad decisions. I've made some really bad decisions that I regret. Right? And it's a mix of curiosity, but my curiosity it's my behavior that's the problem, right? So my curiosity is good to have, but it's what I choose to do with it that's the problem. And like, there's that, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, that there's a difference between somebody who's up for it or somebody who's down. Like, I'm down. I'm not up for anything. I'm down for everything. And that's the problem for me. But I make high risk decisions sometimes. I work with the World Food Program, so I go to a lot of places where maybe a lot of people don't want to go, and I don't have fear there. It's a funny thing because I'm sure I was scared a lot as a kid, but I don't really have a lot of fear now. And when I do have fear, the fear is like turbulence in an airplane. It's not enough to stop me. So I do it anyway. But no, for sure. The thing that I've learned though, I'm a grown ass man now, right? So when I was a young grown ass person, I know when to leave the room. So I know, and this is, I think, the most important skill you can learn in life is to identify which rooms to not go in. But I think you should go into a lot of those rooms anyway, because it's fun. A friend of mine, she says she's always doing things for the plot, whatever's the plot. And I love that. I love that. My friend Sarah says that, and I really respect that because that's high risk behavior for sure. But I'm not the kind of guy that cares. I don't have kids. Like, what do I care? Like, I'm just gonna go for it, right? But for sure, I've had moments where I've been in places and I just think, this is a dumb idea. We got to get out of here right now. So I've done that where you just like, we're leaving right now. But that's all physical, nothing emotional, because I do push myself in very difficult places emotionally and intellectually. But I don't mind that because again, they're just ideas and they're conversations and they're, when you do what I do for a living, and you're in the public eye, everybody's always looking for a reason to support or attack, and you have to take both those in stride. But you saw in my live stream, like it's not that I don't hold back. I hold back lots, but I also give a lot. And when I give, it can create difficult things. It can create difficult situations. But we're grown-ups, and I believe if you're a grown-up, act like a grown-up, for crying out loud. And that doesn't mean don't be playful and have childish joy, but be a grown-up about your choices. And so I certainly live that way. And sometimes it does get me into trouble. Definitely it does. Yeah.
Could you like talk maybe about an example of maybe how that has gotten you into trouble, or if you're comfortable sharing like an experience or something that maybe it did, but you learned like a valuable lesson out of that?
Yeah, sometimes you have to be really careful what you say to police.
Police. I was not expecting to say police.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
I am so tired of, that I end up in handcuffs. I end up detained. I end up kicked around by them. And I'm on the right side of history here, I believe, but sometimes I have to learn to just, dial it back a bit when it comes to certain scenarios. So yeah, sure. I'm definite, but that only ever happens in the US. That doesn't happen so much in Canada.
Yeah. You have to come to Saskatchewan.
Yeah. We got police here too. Is that heavy RCMP territory? Right.
Yeah.
No. So yeah. So definitely, I think I'm older now, and so I recognize how dumb it is to stand my ground all the time. So I've really learned how. So yeah. So that I just detained not that long ago for nothing. I did nothing wrong, and after an hour and a half they figured it out. I did nothing wrong, and they let me go. But it could have gone really badly in that hour and a half that I was with them, right? For sure. So, and I maybe didn't do myself too many favors. I did some favors to myself, but not too many. But so there's that. And I remember walking in an alley in Syria that we weren't allowed to be in, but these Hezbollah guys let us in, and we went in. Think they were Hezbollah. It was a very complicated. I don't want to lay the title of what they were, but you could see some sign. I saw signs. And then and we weren't allowed in, but these guys, armed guys, just let us in for some reason. And probably about 6 or 7 minutes down the walk, I started to think, it's really high risk behavior. I don't know what's going to happen. Everything was fine, obviously. But there was a moment where I could feel tension. And, I was in Darfur when the genocide was happening, and I broke curfew one night and I got chased pretty hard. And I remember I had holed up in this place which had no security. And I remember thinking, because the Janjaweed were circling around us in a pickup truck with guns on them, like mounted guns. And they were shooting in the air, and they were yelling because they were looking for me. And I remember thinking, dumb, 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 dumb. this is 1000% my fault because I should not have broken curfew. But I was curious, right? Yeah. So there's things like that for sure. I think that's the last time. That was 2005. That's the last time I think I was scared. Yeah, like that's the last time I was scared. And then you quickly have to start problem solving. Like I was tense. I've been in tense situations since then, but that's the last time that I was properly thinking, wow, this is going to go. Like I was looking for weapons. Like I was looking for weapons and there were no weapons around. That's the last time that I felt like this could be it tonight. Right. That's, I felt that since, but not like that. So that's definitely one of the times where I feel like I'm stupid.
The curiosity led down a different path, maybe.
Yeah, and I think I'm just so. Look, I'm much smarter now than I was then. I think back then I was like 30 years old, something like that, 27 years old. I'm much smarter about it now than I was then. But still, I have to like remind myself it could go very badly, very quickly.
Absolutely.
And I ride motorcycles fast. So that's, this is another mistake that I make. I ride motorcycles really fast and sometimes I think that gets me into trouble. I go on these long road trips where I rode through Saskatchewan. I would ride from LA all the way up the coast to Vancouver, all the way across Canada to Toronto.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's a great drive.
I've done that and I do it on the motorcycle and I tent along the way. So I've made some high risk choices in that world as well, but always for the plot, right? As Sarah says, always for the plot.
Do you camp along the way, or like do you stay in hotels?
I camp. Sometimes I'm a motels because I want to be close to the bike. Although I will say the next one I do, I think it would be nice to not camp because it would just be easier on my body. I'm a lot older now. I'm 20 odd years since I did my first I did my first cross country when I was 18. So
wow.
I've been doing this hard for a long time. And I'm definitely physically broken from the motorcycle accidents and the other stuff. So I was thinking about doing a trip. I was going to do it this month, but I picked up a new show, so I can't. The next cross country I do, I was thinking of not packing anything and just staying at motels along the way. And every now and then staying at a nice hotel and soaking in a hot tub, because I got those 50-year-old bones,
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to have the mint on the pillow at the end of the day.
Yeah. Because you wake up, this is what happened. I do my road trip and I'm by myself most of the time. And I find a place to camp and then I camp, I set up my tent. I'll make some food for myself over a fire. And then, you fall asleep for a couple hours, then you get woken up by the animals pushing on your tent, sniffing. And I don't travel with a gun. I'm not a gun guy, right? So I don't know what they are. And I'm in places where it could be anything. And I'm just in there, but I have a big knife that I sleep with and I have a hatchet. And I think, oh God, so you're woken up and you're trying to flash, and then you wake, and then you don't get that many hours sleep. And then you're on the bike for 15 hours. 11 hours a day. I used to ride 15, 16 hours a day.
Just switching gears slightly, and this is kind of like a moment, I guess, where we can like consider your personality as somebody who marches into the storm like a bison, somebody who may or may not put themselves into high risk scenarios. I'm just wondering, for all of the younger people,
not always, often, not always, but often.
Okay, all right, we'll go with that. Is there anything that you would say to people who are just starting out in this field of creativity or storytelling or journalism? Would you tell them to take risks, or would you tell them to maybe play it a little bit safer and find another way to tell interesting stories?
I think you have to be really, really honest with yourself about what it is that you want. So as risky as I've done it, I've also worked a large part of my career in the mainstream. So I've made choices to be in the mainstream because I knew that it would put me in a position to either reach a bigger audience or pay me enough that I could continue to do the more extreme stuff that I liked on the side. So I don't think there's one way to do it. I think and I know it doesn't sound helpful to say you have to know what's right for you, but especially if you're young, you really do have to kind of figure out what moves you and then also allow yourself to grow and change. And there's nothing wrong with, trying different things, even things outside your comfort zone, because I believe a large part of why I have been able to do this for as long as I have and continue to feel good about it is that I don't always make decisions for the now. I make decisions for what I think I might want to be able to do, and there's skills that I don't have. Anybody can go and become a creator, and that's great. I think one of the downsides of that, potential downsides, is there's something really interesting about learning the discipline of storytelling and the discipline of communication. And a lot of times in the era I grew up in media, my program directors had enormous expectations of me and us on stage, on the mic or in front of the camera. So I used to do these air checks. They're called air checks, right? And if you know, you would do a show and then your boss would play the show back for you in the room with him, and he would stop and rewind the mistake you made 30, 40 times. And he would look at you and say things like, did I make a mistake in hiring you?
Jeez.
Right?
Wow.
But I loved that. I loved that because his job is not to make me feel good. His job is to make the station sound good. And once you understand what the job is, and I think this is something I would encourage everybody to especially early in your career, is keep repeating this to yourself until you really get it, which is understand the assignment. What's the assignment? Because I have had success and failures in my career. They're not really failures, and they're not even successes, but I've had things that worked and didn't work. I've been hired and I've been fired. It's a lot of it comes down to, am I willing to do the assignment? And now I've really understood that as I've got more experience. So sometimes I want to do a thing. I started a YouTube channel 20 years ago, 21 years ago. Early. Like my
that's
YouTube
early
channel
YouTube.
was right there because my manager called me one day and he said, check this new thing out. He was working with them. It had just launched. So I've had a YouTube channel since the beginning of YouTube. I started a second YouTube channel, and that channel I don't control it now. CBC controls it, but that channel had over 200 million views in the first 10 years. And it was a big channel, right? It still generates a ton of views. My second channel I started without paying much attention to it, and we have 30 million views on it already. And but I say that to say this, which is when I first started doing digital stuff, so before most people had heard of me, before I was on Much Music, before I was even on The Edge in Toronto, I was doing a sports radio show late at night, but I was also working at the first internet radio station in Canada. This is in 1996, 1995, 96. Think about how early that is for internet streaming radio, when people still had 28.8 modems, right? Most people still had 14.4 modems, which is something that younger people would have I'm speaking in a different language by even saying 14.4 or 28.8. But I was on internet radio then, and I knew internet radio wasn't the thing then, but I knew it was coming. So when the Hockey Night Canada thing ended, I didn't, and I've since turned down a couple of shows because I didn't want to go work. I had been practicing to do the streaming thing from the beginning of streaming, right? And so I make investments in my long-term development as a storyteller or as an artist or as a creator. And I think for young people, there's this, you have to kind of find the mix, and it's a really challenging line to find, which is do this thing now so you can learn how to be better for the future, but also don't do that at the expense of the fire that drives you now. So find the project that serves that part of you, but always keep an eye, because if you're lucky, you're going to be older a lot longer than you're young. So what are you teaching yourself for down the road, but not missing being in the moment now? And I think every human's got a different kind of path to get there, but artists have to find that. And the other thing that I think that I do, and this makes it, this is one of my Gen X toxic traits, which is one of my many, which is nobody owes me their attention. Nobody owes me space. Nobody owes my voice to be heard. Nobody owes my opinions to be felt. Nobody owes me the feeling of being seen. I'm not owed any of it because everybody has their own life. And so my job is to make the things that I feel like making. But if I am not aware of the fact that other people are out there and I'm not telling stories to them, then it's just about me. And so they don't own me. So there's lots of choices I make in my career that are designed not for audience. They're just designed because I like to make them. But I don't get mad or get hurt when people don't respond to that stuff. I didn't make it for them. I made it for me. So I don't value being heard or seen as a first move. I value it if I've earned their company, and I really take people's time seriously. And so for an artist, you kind of have to figure out, that mix of doing it for you, but doing it for an audience. Otherwise, just you're doing it for you, and then that's fine too. But there's no business in that. So if you want this to be a business, you have to go to the places where the business exists or create your own business. If it's just art, well, then that's fine. Then you can do whatever you want. But nobody owes you that, That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, and I'm great that you're talking about that. Artistic expression personally for yourself is such an important thing for people to go out and explore. I believe, especially as a young person, because that allows them to go to places where nobody else is telling them to go, but they're just exploring it. Uncharted territory all on their own just to explore what that might mean for them. They might find something really honest and raw or scary about themselves that they wouldn't have been able to find if they were doing some sort of commercialized version of that.
Right.
So that dichotomy, I think, is really important. And as a storyteller or as a creator or somebody who's just getting into the industry for the first time or they've been in it for 40 years, having something where you're doing that thing for you, I believe, is such an important part of being a creative person.
I think it is, and I think there's a psychological benefit to it, which extends beyond the thing you're making. And I actually think this is why I would make art way more important in grade schools. And it's not because, I come from that era where you're like, well, what are you going to do for a living? Listen, all these nerds created AI. There's no jobs anyway. Let's these tech geeks, like they ruined work, right? So this idea, what are you going to do for a living? Well, like there are no jobs. What do you mean? What am I going to do for a living? Or there are very few jobs. So what I do think is why I would triple down on that art stuff is it's not to teach kids what to do for a living. It's to teach kids to learn how to express themselves. Expressing yourselves really prepares you for difficult times, learning how to stand up for yourself, learning how to articulate how you feel. All that comes from the building blocks of expression. I want kids to stay alive. I don't want kids to feel so overwhelmed by what happens in their life that they don't know how to express themselves and then they take their own lives, which is what happens, as we know. And I do think learning how to express yourself, while not a catch-all, it's not a cure, it is one tool that you have to have a happier, more sustainable, possibly survive life. And so if you don't teach kids how to express, they will be miserable. And I know this because I've interviewed so many people, and I can tell you it is a thread. It is a thread through those who are living their best lives, not the most successful, but the ones who are happy and the ones who aren't. And an artist, a true artist, just wants to create, right? So you can handle a lot of difficult things if you know how to get it out of you. When people bottle stuff up and they don't have, so it's not just about, oh, he's a painter, she's a sculptor, they're an artist. It's not that. It's, do they have the psychological mechanism? They always talk about sports. Your kid's not going to be a pro athlete, but they learn valuable lessons. Yeah, but the same is true for art, right? Except that, we live in this really weird, dummy masculine culture and strange Illuminati yoga mom culture that doesn't understand that this stuff is as important as your spiritual growth or your physical growth, that this stuff is what helps keep you alive. It really does. I believe it.
Why do you think we need to keep reminding other human beings of that?
Because we're techno serfs. They turned us into cucks for these gigantic corporations and governments that, if you want the real answer, right? We get these, our parents, were raised in this toxic place because their parents come from a war-torn reality, and we're in it again now in a way, but we're raised with really dumb values, right? We're raised to, and by the way, it's not their fault. You got to work hard. Yeah, but at what? But why do you got to work hard? You do have to work hard, but at what? Got to make a living to provide for your family. True. Where now? Where no one can afford rent, nobody can afford mortgages. So all these people propped up a system that betrayed us in the end. And you know who told us they were going to betray us? All the punk rock singers in the 70s and the early 80s. So like none of this that's happening in the world is a surprise to me, because all the music I've been listening to has been telling me this has been coming for a long time. So we were raised this idea of, men got to go and break their backs, working, some weird, connection to the Garden of Eden and the curse, that you have to go toil under the sun, and that women will endure the pain of childbirth. Lots of women don't want to have kids. Lots of women don't want to be in that traditional family situation, and they shouldn't have to, right? So I think we're the first generation, not mine. Mine is the first generation who kind of, because the artists were really pushing these ideas forward, but the generation after us are the first ones who are suffering from the shit that they tried to raise us on, which is that you have to follow this one path, play the middle, the corporate ladder. None of that exists anymore. Right? So I think that we were just, and then we all just gave away our privacy and our independence to tech companies. And if you're not on the internet, you can't function in society. You can't bank. It's hard to buy flights. You can't, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, so there's ways to do it, but it's much, much harder. You can't step out of your house without already paying $40, $20, $70 on a subscription to you used to get Photoshop and you could design, you could be a creative, but now they're selling subscriptions. So we're just leasing our lives from these tech overlords and propped up by venture capitalists. This is probably not the answer you wanted, but this is
great. This is great. I'm here for it. We're here for it. Go in deeper.
We used to make and own things, and now we lease things, and I think the reckoning's coming, and I will be one of the people who is not only going to pour the gasoline on that fire, but I will be striking the match, right? But I do think the reckoning's coming, because this is an unsustainable, this kind of extractive capitalism. Doesn't mean I don't want people to make money. I don't care if people get rich. I want people to get rich. I think, but I want everybody to be out of poverty. And I think that the system that we were raised on doesn't get you out of poverty. It gets you to try to get into some weird middle class thing with this hoop dream of becoming a billionaire or something, which you can only really do if you hurt the working people. And I'm a big believer that artists in the working class should be aligned. The art I grew up is about the working class, getting people out of poverty. So that's why I got no time for those dudes who talk a big game about how they're anti-government, all this stuff, and they just constantly vote to abandon the working class. And even though they put Paxos in their back pocket, and they use a belt sander on the back pocket so it looks like it's worn in, and they listen to shitty cuck pop country, right? That makes them, but they're really just bootlickers, They're bootlickers, like John Jones handing the UFC belt to the president like he's bending the knee. Like I look at those guys and I'm like, they're all abandoning the working class, right? In this weird cult of personality. And I think it drives me, right? It drives me to, anyway, this is probably definitely more now than you signed up for.
No, this is amazing.
But that's what I believe. And guys hate me for it because they don't want to look at themselves and go, because I was part of the problem too. And you look at yourself going, wait a minute, I'm also, by playing the middle, I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because the middle, we have to agree in the middle, but that doesn't mean you play the middle, right? And I think that's really different. And so I really push myself to, we don't abandon the working class, that's the key.
Yeah, I was curious, like, what are some like actionable steps people can take? Like, what would you say to people to kind of support what you're saying here?
And like, what
That,
does
that,
the reckoning look like? You mentioned the
mm,
reckoning, and how can people be a part of that reckoning?
Get phones out of kids' hands.
mm-hmm.
Get social media out of kids' hands. Get phones out of kids'
Love
hands.
that.
I think I think the book is in on social media. The jury's still out on the technological revolution because it is really new, right? I'm of the generation, like I stream around, I broadcast to 165 countries around the world on a phone, and I started my career before phones did this. So like we're
Mm-hmm.
really new, and I think it's really important to recognize that there is a big picture. There's a cathedral building kind of approach to this where you start a project and we'll all be long dead before we know really what it's about. But I think that the book is in on social media, and I think it's really, really, really damaging to kids. Really damaging to
Mm-hmm.
kids, and it's turned them into these early kind of hyper consumers, insecure because they're constantly seeing, like, you used to see your high school or your grade school reflected back at you, and that's tough enough. But now, to see the world reflected back at you, to let kids be mean to other kids, to do it without any
Yeah.
recourse,
Yeah.
the and adults are, like, if I lipped off to a dude in the alley here, the way some people do on social media, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to the hospital if I'm lucky, right?
Yeah.
So kids,
Totally.
so it's a really dangerous place, I think, social media. And so that's what I believe. That is
Mm-hmm.
the first step, the first step. And then the people who are on the right and the people on the left have to understand together, this is about protecting the working class from giant corporations. And governments try. Governments, they always say a government's job is to keep power. That's not true. A government's job is to govern. A party's job is to hold on to power. But government's supposed to work with a bunch, in our system in Canada anyway, a bunch of parties working together. If they're not working on behalf of the working class, we're in trouble. The other thing I think we do is get rid of all money out of, take all money out of politics. Take all money out of politics. Don't let any religious, tax the religions. But that's just my personal thing. That's not going to change the world. But no, I would say take money out of politics. Like, don't let
Mm-hmm.
donations exist. Don't let lobbyists exist when money's involved. I think it is a complete rethink of how we do it. Of working class people, get people out of poverty, make sure that working class people get way more than 2 weeks vacation and get benefits and do all. That's not communism, right? And these guys on the right, like the people on the left have their. I honestly think when people say the left, they don't really know what they're talking. They're talking about the middle. They're talking about liberals and neoliberalism. But the real left is about, we work together and everybody has an equal opportunity and everybody does all right. I want everybody to do all right. That, by the way, is totally possible. And they raise you to think it's not. They
Mm-hmm.
raise you to think it's not.
Mm-hmm.
My family escaped communism. I'm not a communist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not part of that. But I believe in breaking down all that stupid labeling stuff and get to what we really need to do is realize that the right and the left will not agree on a lot of issues. But what we can agree on is the working class. The right are generally funded by people who don't want that, the big corporations. So if we don't come to, so I think the first step is get money out of politics and get phones out of kids' heads,
I
and
love that.
specifically social media,
Yeah.
because I think parents nowadays want to surveil their kids all day long. So I get that, right? But I think social media is a really big problem for kids.
Sure. And I agree with everything you were saying there. And that's maybe a bit more of a contentious topic for a podcast around creativity, but I love it. I think that's really important.
Well,
Those are
you're
important
right.
things.
You're right. Yeah,
They,
and it fuels my
they connect.
creativity.
They
Yeah,
connect though. And like this, you know, system that we're in Canada, especially when it comes down to things like socialized healthcare, is something that we all benefit from in certain ways. And depending on which side of the fence you're on, you're going to have a very polarizing opinion depending on where you
yeah,
are in
yeah,
that system.
yeah,
And
yeah,
said could be true about all of our citizens, especially our young people, when it comes to educating them and allowing them to express themselves in our country in ways where they're not being governed or ushered into something that they don't want to be in. So
Yeah,
I think that's
a
a really
protest.
great thing to talk about. But
It's
what are your
also what fuels my
thoughts?
art. It's also why I do this for a living. That's the truth. Like I don't want to paint a picture, a bowl of fruit. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's great. But the art that the my reason for being is not to take a picture of a thing and go, oh look, right? To me, a piece of art is inherently useless. It serves no purpose except to challenge an idea. So I don't think a chair can. I think a chair can be artistic, but a chair serves another purpose, right?
Yeah, there's a
Art
function.
is a yeah, it's a function. Art. I don't think for me. I'm not saying everybody should see it this way. I don't think art should serve can have another function except to push and challenge, ideologically speaking. And so I think it's important, and I think people have to come to terms with where they sit, which is, do you believe you are your brother or sister's keeper, or you do not? And I believe I am. And there are people who don't, and that's a valid political point of view to have, by the way. And so we engage in a social contract to find a way to move forward. But I believe that we are our brothers and sisters and others keepers. And so regardless of who you are, and that's I think that fuels everything that I do, except for when I just play a metal song that I think's dope. You know, that's fine too.
You got to have metal once in a while too. I mean, that's not
yeah.
just that's important.
Yeah, you need some balance.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one last question, and
Yeah,
it's
you can
something
ask me.
that
You can ask me more. I'm good.
cool. It's something that we're moving forward with, and just asking all our guests this, and we're very curious your thoughts. If you could write one memo to a younger version of yourself, George, what would you say?
Never stop trying. Never stop trying. The result doesn't matter. The doing is what matters. Yeah. If I wish I knew that earlier, that you're not chasing a thing. What you're doing is the thing. You can be strategic and plan towards the future, but the thing is this. I think about all my friends who I worked with who've passed on now. You know, they never got the thing they chased, right? You're not chasing a thing. You got to keep trying. This is the thing. And I really, really think that I wish I knew that earlier. How could I know that? I was 22 years old. How could I know it? But that's what I would tell myself, you know?
I love that.
Great. I recently heard this definition of resilience that really stuck with me, and it's this idea that you're allowed and you should probably get angry at things that are supposed to make you angry or mad. You're allowed to throw your fist through the drywall. You're allowed to scream into a pillow. You're allowed to get angry and shout if that's what it takes. But resilience is about your ability and how quickly you can get back to your baseline. And I think that's so true. You can't stay mad forever. You can't keep punching holes in your drywall in your house. There's a point in time where you have to say, okay, how am I going to get back to my baseline of normalcy? And that's something I've just been listening to talk through this podcast. And it's something that seems like, anyway, you've been really good at doing throughout your career.
Yeah.
And like,
I don't,
do you feel that way?
stray. Yeah, I don't stray from my baseline. I do think that the anger never goes away in me, to the desire to make it better. So I think what I try to do is move my baseline to a more, to live in more uncomfortable spaces. And I'm already good at that, but I've cultivated that. Here's what I would say, Taylor. I think that you are way more resilient than you think you are, but you're not as tough as everybody expects you to be. And you have to find that line and hold that line. And I do think you can't do it 24/7. I do think you have to realize and remind yourself time and time again, it is not your responsibility to do everything everywhere all at once. You are part of a movement of people. You do your part, they will do their part, we hope. And sometimes you can just put your feet up and watch Columbo, right? You don't have to which is what I do. You don't have to always, when people say, I want to save the world, I'll have to ask them, have you seen the world? Have you been to the world? I've been a lot. I've not been all over the world, but I've been a lot around the world. You go to certain countries and you think, Yeah, that thing that you're fighting about here in Canada, it's not a thing there. So the thing that is the most important thing to you that you think the world needs is never getting on the radar there. So people say, I want to save the world. Go see the world and see what that really means to you, right? And I, people just don't live the way you live, and that doesn't mean they're wrong, right? There are universal human rights. I think we fight for those. And you cannot, one person cannot by themselves in Toronto or Saskatoon or LA or wherever, nobody, one person can overhaul the United Nations overnight on an American administration or a Canadian government or a provincial government in the ledge. You can't do that, but you can play your part. And I think sometimes people get overwhelmed thinking they have to play this part, because I think a lot of kids, not me, I wasn't raised with this at all, but a lot of kids are raised to believe they can do anything, and that they're raised to believe that there's this weird kind of
Dangerous.
individual excellence thing that we're raised to be, where I think that your individual excellence is only awesome if you know how to make and take a pass, right? Can you do it with other people? So being around people, I think, so the community is really important. And I'm a pretty resilient guy to a toxic level. And because I hold myself personally to a standard that's unachievable, right? But not in terms of achievements. I don't care about achievements, but I hold myself to a standard, a high standard of how to navigate life. And I'm constantly pushing myself to be stronger and better and more curious and more open about life. Achievements aren't interesting to me. And what's weird, dude, is they've never been, Brooke, they've never been interesting to me. You know, my achievements, I just, they're still not. I like the fact that the three of us can real talk for an hour.
Same.
And by the way, this might make a whole bunch of people not want to come to your festival. They might be like, "Oh God, I just wanted to talk about much music, and here we are, we're
Memos
techno
canceled.
surfs."
No, this has been
This has been
super
so
great,
good.
George. Yeah, this has been a tremendous conversation, and we really appreciate your wisdom, you know, as it pertains to creativity and storytelling, but also the life stuff too, because that's what this is all about. It's getting real with each other and with our community. I love that word
Yeah.
community. It's so incredibly important to find your people and connect to something a little bit bigger than yourself, plug into that, and find some purpose and some meaning within that community. So thank you for your thoughts on that.
No, thank you. The most cliche thing I could say is John Lennon quote, right? But the reason why this philosophy stuff and this kind of worldview and the personal and the community, all that matters so much for a creative is, it's good for your life if you could find your, like I say, and I'll say it again, this just is what worked for me. I don't know your chemistry. I don't know your reality. I don't have kids. People have other realities, right? You have to find the thing that works for you. But all this stuff, or your version of this stuff, gets you to that thing that John Lennon said, right? Just give me some truth. Give me some truth. And give me some truth. I meet lots of people I don't agree with, but sometimes if they're racist, I have no time for them. I have no time for racists. I have no time for homophobes. I have no time for transphobes. But I do understand that people can learn and people can grow. So, but I generally am not going to get dragged into a debate about that stuff. But human rights are human rights to me. But I do believe that we're all better if we push to some version of truth or the truth, right? You know? And John Lennon, I always just think about that. Just give me some truth.
Such a
man. I
powerful
want some
quote.
truth. Yeah.
So
Love
powerful.
it.
Yeah.
I love
Can
that.
I ask you just one more question? It's maybe more of an
Yeah.
existential one, but obviously this ideology of stoicism exists in our world, and it comes from, you know, the stoic experts of our time of taking things on as they are and experiencing things as they come at you, instead of, you know, feeling a certain way or developing certain opinions or thoughts beforehand or even after the fact. I'm just wondering, like, because this is something that I think about often in my life that I live, is everything that I've done and experienced in my life has led up until this moment of now. And I'm just sort of letting my life unfold as it does. Do you ever think about life in that sort of a way? Or do you have more of a macro viewpoint on your life and how it unfolds, and you kind of already have something planned for yourself in the future?
The thing about letting it unfold, I get it. I see value in it. I have lived that way in times. But to me, it's just not as fun, right? To me, I don't want to wonder if I passed the viper's pit. To me, I want to put a stick in the viper's pit and see what we can't scare up, right? So I have gone through phases of letting it happen. You know, I go to this Buddhist place in Venice that I really like, and it's based on this Dharma punks idea, and I find a lot of value in that. I'm not a Buddhist, but I find a lot of value in that, in the tweaking, the kind of, I think it's nice to go to a mechanic and just get your consciousness kind of lined up a little bit, you know, your brain lined up a little bit from a neuroscience point of view. So I do that, and I like what they talk about, but I'm an active participant in my life. I'm not a bystander in my life. And I think some people are wired to be bystanders, and that's okay. That's okay. I pass no judgment on how you. Some people don't have the desire to fly this close to the sun the way that I do.
Yeah.
Because your wings melt and you fucking die, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I've done that.
So, yeah. And so I do too, all the time. So I used to be a little bit more, I let life unfold, and I still have an element of that in me, but the danger there is you can become really annoying on TikTok if you just sit back and do that shit, and you don't recognize that the world's on fire and people are in pain and there's all this injustice, and you and your stoicism is not helping, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is my problem with TikTok philosophy life. I've read Aurelius. I love it. I'm of Greek descent, part Greek descent, philosophy, and that's been a big part of my life. And I think Hellenism is an incredible, and I really do subscribe to a lot of what exists in Hellenism, and I think there's value in that for sure. But philosophy without action, like religion without action, is fine, but you're in the stands. And I want to be on the ice. And I want to be on the ice, you know?
love that.
And so, but again, I don't recommend this for everybody because it's exhausting, but it's fun.
I love it. That's amazing.
Great. Well, I think we can wrap. You've been talking to us for an hour and 12
thank
minutes
you.
now. So I really appreciate this. And I know Brooke does as well. Brooke, do you have any last questions or thoughts that you wanted to share?
No,
at all?
I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast, but more importantly, I think being a presence at Memo is going to be so powerful, and I'm so excited that it interests you and you can share more of your story with other people. It's just
my pleasure.
It's just exciting. So
Thank you. It's
George.
my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it. Now, if somebody's going to interview me on stage, am I going to, like, what are we going to talk about? Same thing, more or less?
Yeah, I think so. So Joelle Tomlinson's going to interview you. She is an anchor at Global in Calgary, and she is a phenomenal person through and through. We go way back, and she'll be the correct personality, I think, that will match George Stroumboulopoulos.
Is she a real talker? Is it like, are we going to real talk?
Yeah.
Great. That's what
Yeah,
I'm dying
for sure.
I'm dying. I love real talk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
She
thank
is
you.
a real talker. Yeah.
I was going to say thank you for opening up and being. I love that you like to dive deep. So I'm glad we were able to touch on that in this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.